Hello, my loves. Welcome back to the Pelvic Empowerment Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Liliana, and today I wanted to follow up our last episode with a discussion about the emotional, energetic, and spiritual sides of the pelvis and the pelvic floor. So last episode, we did a bit of a dive into the anatomy, the biomechanics, the function of the pelvic floor. And today I want to look at the other side of things, the side that can often be missed in the very traditional physical therapy setting, and the side that I feel very passionate about. I tend to refer to this as the more spiritual side, but honestly, I think I had my own personal bias where I thought that this was more just like woo-woo stuff. And honestly, I hate when people use that term. I feel like woo-woo, like there's a connotation to it that really discredits how much science is actually at play when we do look at the emotional side of things. And so I guess maybe another way to refer to it is more of like the psychological side of the presentation of our pelvis. So in essence, today's conversation is going to be about the nervous system and the nervous system's role in your pelvic wellness and pelvic function. I'm thinking to try to keep this episode brief. I just kind of want to plant some seeds and just like start the conversation about the nervous system's connection to the pelvis, because this can be such an in-depth conversation. But the main point that I want to hone in on is that the state of your nervous system can impact the state of your pelvic floor and the function of your pelvic organs. One thing I want you to consider is I want you to think back to times in your life and see if there's any connection points you can draw between your state, your emotional state, and the function of your bladder, your bowel, and even of your uterus, whether that be like during your cycle or not. A lot of people, whether they realize it or not, tend to have emotional responses in their pelvis. And so for some people that can look like increased, let's say, let's start with the bladder, like increased urinary urge and frequency. So like when you're anxious, all of a sudden you're peeing every half hour, or you feel like you have to pee every half hour. In the bowel, we see a lot of constipation, diarrhea, like depending on if you're anxious or if you're depressed, it can swing one way or the other. I've known stress and like overwhelm to really increase cramping during the menstrual cycle. And even like digestion can change and either be slowed or too quick depending on your state of being, the way that you're feeling. So I just wanted to start with that invitation of like taking a moment, take that inventory. Empowerment is all about you knowing your body. So take inventory and see, how does my pelvis respond to stress, anxiety, depression, overwhelm, fear, all these different emotional states. And establish your baseline. Good journal prompt here. Maybe you make a list and can reflect on your lived experience. What does it actually feel like in your belly and in your pelvis, pelvic floor? Everyone does present a little bit differently, but it's really fair to say that the pelvic area, the pelvic organs, the pelvic floor does respond to changes in your nervous system state. And this is really cool and really unique because our other organs, they do respond to stress, but I find that our pelvic organs, they're like somewhere in between. They're not completely involuntary, like let's say our heart beats whether we want it to or not, or like our liver, because I feel like your heart, it beats faster depending on what you're doing. But like let's say like your liver, your pancreas, if they're changing, you don't necessarily feel it. So your pelvic floor or your pelvic organs, they're not completely involuntary and they're not completely voluntary like your muscular control, but there's somewhere in between where your bladder, bowel, and reproductive organs, they do sense changes in your emotional nervous system state, and they do respond accordingly. And that can also change depending on the habits that you build, the resiliency that you build, the way that you train your body to respond to certain stimulus. And so I'm just really fascinated by that and really encourage you to, again, take inventory and notice what is true for your body on a day-to-day basis. And even historically, like maybe you know that like when you were a kid, your body responded a certain way versus now you respond completely differently. So it's a really cool topic of exploration, and the reason I think it's so important to bring up is because it can be really easily overlooked, and especially in the Western medical model, where physicians especially are taught mostly just to prescribe whatever medication will help ease the symptoms at hand. It can very easily be forgotten that your stress, your emotional state, your level of overwhelm, your feeling of safety in your body, that all of these things can make a huge difference in the way your body is presenting. And now your pelvic floor is possibly, and for some people it's different in everyone, but your pelvic floor is almost even more of a direct responder than some of your organs. Organs that can sometimes have a bit of a delayed response or can, kind of go on for days or not. But your pelvic floor, similar to like your jaw and your neck, it tends to grip up and hold tension as a result of emotions like fear, stress, overwhelm, all of those that I've been mentioning. And that's a protective response. The thing that I want to highlight and always to highlight is that your body is always trying its best. Your body is never trying to sabotage you. If you have pain or dysfunction, that points to something deeper happening, that if we start to peel back the layers, should be able to find the reason why and should be able to find some sort of support that can help your body reestablish homeostasis. And so your pelvic floor, as a response to stress, oftentimes will grip up. Now, in the last episode, we talked about how the pelvis is sometimes, depending on certain body types, in a lot of people can be the center of gravity, center of mass. Your pelvic floor squeezing and tightening up, one reason that may happen is because your pelvic floor is trying to stabilize you. It's trying to create stability. It's trying to protect a vulnerable area. In the last episode, we also talked about how your pelvic floor is the only support for some of your most vital organs. Your bladder, bowel, reproductive system, if there's something wrong with those, you're not going to be happy day to day, so your belly and pelvic muscles want to protect that area. And so that gripping is a protective response. It's your body, again, doing its best, trying to help you because it's getting the signal we're not safe. And that's the way I want you to start to think about this nervous system, brain to body, emotions to pelvis connection. Every experience that you have, every thought that you have, everything, this is probably the most accurate way to say it, everything that you perceive, you're taking in information with all of your senses, you're perceiving it, and that perception is coded chemically in your body. And chemically, those systems or those messages are sent out to all the different systems of the body. And again, your body does what it thinks it needs to do to take care of you. And so you have this innate primal system that's meant to detect threat around you. And when you detect threat, when your brain and your body perceive that you are unsafe, oftentimes that leads to a reflexive gripping and holding at the pelvic floor. And so a big part of the work that I do with my patients is working to reestablish safety in the body. And it's really important to note that cognitive, intellectual safety is not the same as safety in the body, because you can look at your situation and intellectually tell yourself like, no, I'm safe. There's no threat here. But if on a body level, on a deeper level, something about the situation feels uncomfortable to you, that message is coded chemically and is carried out throughout the rest of the systems. So it's really important to be able to think critically about the way that we actually feel and that we actually respond. And this self-knowing is really important. And again, that foundation to empowerment. If you don't know your body, you cannot be empowered to create the highest vision for your life, whether that's just pelvic symptoms or everything around you. Again, your pelvic health is a metaphor for life. If you can do it at your pelvis, you can do it in all other areas of life. Your pelvis is one of the most, if not the most vulnerable places in your body and in your experience. So if you can tune in and notice what's true for you here and do the work to create the experience that you want, like I said, that carries over, that concept carries over into all facets of living. So taking inventory of the way that your body feels in a variety of settings is a really important practice. And especially when it comes to diagnoses like pelvic pain. This is one of the biggest ones that I really try to educate on and encourage my patients in, because pain with sex specifically is one of those things that, especially if it's recurrent, if you have pain consistently, it's important to look at what beliefs am I holding? Again, what is my state of being? How am I feeling? Even though intellectually it may be that everything's okay. I see this a lot when people have partners that they've been with for a long time. And they're like, but I love my partner. I should be, what do you mean I don't feel safe with my partner? I love my partner. I've been with them for so long. But just because you love your partner and you intellectually, again, feel safe with them doesn't mean that your body feels ready or feels fully comfortable to let go in any given situation. So there is some work to be done oftentimes to shed layers, acknowledge limiting beliefs, acknowledging past traumas. And this is where a team approach can come in. I, as a coach, I branded myself as an empowerment coach prior to working in the clinic, because there's a lot that we can do with mindfulness in our one-on-one sessions. But this is why having a team of providers is really important, because I will only be able to take you so far with mindfulness training. But if you work with a professional, like someone who's trained in counseling or psychology, that can support you in processing perhaps some deeper layers that may be causing your physical tissues to be responding in a certain way. So it's important to have that awareness and to know all of the different factors that can be contributing to your presentation. And from there, then you can determine which type of care you need more of, because you may need more of the hands-on physical PT care, or we may do some of that and you may realize, okay, I actually have to do more of the emotional processing stuff, and then maybe I can revisit PT, or maybe it's a 50-50 mix, or whatever it is for you, but recognizing how much your lived experience does contribute to your pelvic experience. Another thing I want to highlight is that it doesn't just work in this one direction of I don't feel safe in my body, so I have pain. That's more of the hyperactive response. There's also a hypoactive response that can happen. I tend to see this correlation more with depressive type tendencies, but it can happen either way, where the pelvis, the pelvic floor, tends to lose a little bit of sensation, where it can be numbness. So sometimes pelvic numbness, this is another one of those examples of the body is just trying, it's doing its best, it's just trying to take care of you. Especially the correlation I found in my patients, I don't know this specifically, I haven't looked in the research, and it's hard to do research in this way because you're combining psychology and biomechanics, it's two big schools of science, and it's hard to do sometimes, but I really like working with both. So the downside of that is that sometimes we don't have a ton of research that supports it, but I can speak to what I've seen in my patients and in my anecdotal evidence. And so oftentimes emotions like shame, or that feeling of getting shut down, whereas you try to express authentically and you feel like you can't, you have to hide who you are, or you have to dim yourself down in order to to fit in or to be accepted. I wonder if there's a good word for this. Anyway, let's just use shame. I feel like you get the vibe. In instances of shame, times that you've had to shut yourself down, sometimes as a protective response, the pelvic tissues will go numb. And so again, body's just trying its best to help you. If the message that's getting coded in your body is, I'm not enough the way that I am, I'm not okay, I'm not good, I don't like my body's gross, this area is gross, nobody touches it, I don't want to touch it, all of these different storylines, the body tries to help and says, okay, you don't want to think about this area? No problem, we're just going to shut it off. No sensation, gray that part completely out. And that can make it really difficult. Again, let's take the example of pain with sex, or not pain with sex, but sex. When you go to touch this area and try to find those pleasurable sensations that everyone's talking about, it may be difficult, or it may be difficult for that sensation to be sustained or for it to lead to orgasm. In both of these cases, and there is other application as well, but I feel like sex is one of the areas that either like pain or numbness just like really stand out. And I recognize how debilitating that experience can be. And again, I know we mentioned in one of the episodes about insurance, like really not giving a shit about that experience and saying, well, you can still do all your day-to-day functions. But honestly, I've seen it create really great challenges in people's personal lives, in their relational experience, and just quality of life in general. It's really frustrating. So yes, just trying to highlight that experience is very common and it's not ideal. It's not what we want for you, and it is something that can be helped. And it is very important that as we start to support your tissues, that we recognize how much of an impact something like your emotional state can have. So another journal prompt for you would be to take inventory, reflect on where is your mental and emotional state throughout the day. Do you tend to hang out at super stressed? Do you tend to hang out very checked out? And then noticing what the correlation is to your pelvic experience. So having a look at where you're at throughout the day, seeing if you fluctuate, seeing if you stay pretty even keeled, noticing how often pleasure comes up in your experience, because I think sometimes, again, like the very clinical approach is making sure that you're not too high and you're not too low, but are we ever really intentionally making sure that we're having a good time? Like that is also important for our bodies, our brains, our bodies chemically, we thrive off of that feel good feeling. And there's lots of things that create that for us as humans. A lot of this is so primitive. This fear response is primitive. Pleasure is primitive. And we need to feed the good pathways and be gentle and kind with reducing some of the more fear-based pathways. We don't want your body constantly fighting to protect you. And notice how I chose my words very carefully. It's not that we need to stop these responses, because resistance is another state of being that makes it hard for your pelvic floor to respond effectively. Resistance is very unique and very specific. A lot of times when we're fighting our body, our symptoms like low-key get worse. This is another one of those anecdotal things I've seen in myself and in my patients, that it's like, yes, you could be doing all the right things, but if you have the mentality of like resistance and like push, it's so hard for your body to actually respond the way that we want it to, because there is that friction experience in the body. So instead of forcing away the thing that we don't want, we just want to cultivate room for the thing that we do want and be gentle and kind and compassionate, so compassionate. That's why I find that reframe of like, my body's just trying to help me can be really powerful, because that shifts you out of the I shouldn't be doing this mindset into I understand why this is happening and it's okay. It's okay. We're just gonna take our time, be gentle, and try to shift when we feel ready. That's the mentality and the energy that I want for you, because that force, that resistance, it's not going to do anybody any good. It just creates more of those uncomfortable feelings, emotions, patternings in the body. We don't want to feed that feedback loop. And so the last part of this that I kind of want to invite you to start to explore is storylines and narratives, because some of the emotional catalysts for the state of our pelvis started very, very young, like years and years and years ago. Personally, one of the biggest things that I had to unpack when I was rebuilding my connection with my own pelvis was shame that was like put upon me via religion. So I grew up in a really strict Catholic household, and there was a lot of shame around pleasure, around like dating, like connection to boys was always like this big taboo thing. yeah, sex was always very like, no, you're not going to do that until you're married. And even then, like, it's very, it was never about pleasure and fun and being connected to your body. Your body was this very like part of you that was very disconnected from your day-to-day experience of it. And so for me, there was a lot of this process of kind of like how I mentioned of intellectually, I felt one thing where I could say like, yeah, no, like I love my body's chill. But inside there were all of these ingrained patterns of shame and disconnect and dissociation and really strong, almost like rejection of my body. And those were the layers that needed a little bit of love and attention, not even just love, but like attention and intentional rewriting. And so your last journal prompt, if you would like it, is to start looking at what were the storylines and narratives present in your household, in your growing up experience, and which of those things do you feel like you really took on, and maybe some of them you rejected, but starting to build your understanding of the experiences that have led you to be where you are today. So when we have to look at the past, so understanding what got you here, look at today, what is your typical manifestation, and then from there we can start to build the vision of where is it that I want to go, what do I want, what is my desire for my pelvic experience, and again, for my life. And to take this one step further even, I believe it's in the Indian tradition. Oh man, how do I not know this off the top of my head? I haven't needed to cite this in a long time, but the chakra system, I'm pretty sure this is a concept that was born out of India. But the chakra system is a system, you may have seen it. It's typically that picture of like someone sitting in a meditative position and they have the 7 colorful orbs all through the center line of the body. The chakra system is a system that represents all of your energetic centers according to this tradition or school of thought. And this is something that I personally believe in and think is a really cool concept to work with. And whether you believe in it like truly for what it is, or again, just use it as a metaphor, the chakra system can be really helpful for connecting with the emotional, psychological, energetic experience of the body and how it relates to the pelvis. So again, furthermore, to just kind of like further this point, in this Eastern way of thinking, it also tracks. And I think it's really, really cool to see this because the first chakra is your root chakra. That is the base of your pelvis. It's the one that, again, in the picture when someone's sitting, it's down, touching the floor. It's red. It lives inside of your pelvis. And according to the tradition, you want these orbs, these energetic centers in your body to be balanced. So you don't want them overactive and you don't want them stagnant or underactive. You want them moving with the right amount of life force energy. And so each center represents a different piece of your energetic makeup and puzzle. And surprisingly, not surprisingly, like wonderfully, the way that it all aligns, that first chakra, the one that lives in your pelvis, is all about safety. So it's your root. It's again that primitive connection to nature, to self, to other. So safety in family systems, safety in sense of self, safety in finances, community, all of the things that help us feel well rooted. And I love that this is the first one because it truly is the foundation for the rest of our being. Again, another reason why the pelvis is just so important and such a cool place to put your attention on, even for just a phase of life, while you're in pelvic PT or while you're listening, if you ever happen to just like stumble upon this podcast and binge listen, like maybe this is a time that you can really devote to learning about your body and your pelvis because there really is so much to do here. And again, it really does ripple out into every other area of life. So the thing that I find cool about this is root chakra is the first, and it has to be well balanced in order for the rest of the chakras to be balanced as well. If the foundation isn't steady, the building's not going to be steady. So root chakra is first. Second chakra is your sacral chakra, which is also in your pelvis. And this is the energetic center of pleasure, of play, creativity, that feeling of just like bliss, joy, enjoyment, free flowing. And also, if you notice, those are masculine and feminine qualities. So the root chakra is your masculine, your sacral chakra is your feminine. So that sense of safety needs to feel not rigid, but that's another quality of the masculine where it's very like established and contained, I guess is a good word, like the essence of a container. Like you can trust it, it is reliable, it is strong, it is sturdy, and that's what creates the framework for that next energy, that feminine energy, which is more of flow and release and almost the sensation of like surrender. Surrender is such a big component of pleasure, and so we need to be able to access that energy in order to experience the fullness of pleasure. And and that's hugely manifested in the pelvis, in the pelvic floor. Even to like take it one more step further, like obviously with the reproductive system, pleasure is something we're supposed to feel, but take even with like bladder and bowel control. I'm not saying that when you pee or poop, it's supposed to feel like the most pleasurable thing in the whole world, but there should definitely be a level of like ease and flow. It shouldn't feel hard or like work or like the most dreaded part of your day. You know what I mean? So the chakra system is another one of those more like esoteric teachings that I think is really supported and supportive to know in this conversation. So we have more of the like science, the psychological piece where we can recognize that the state of the nervous system, stress or dissociation, fear, anxiety, that all of those emotions truly do have an impact on the physical tissues. And then we have the other side, the Eastern side, the non like evidence-based side that also supports it. And like I was saying before, the chakra system, whether you take it for fact, like I do have an energetic center that lives here, or you take it more as inspiration, I think it can be a really wonderful adjunct to any of the like science-based work that you are doing if you're a science-based person. I'm definitely more of an intuitive-based person, so I take it, I run with it, and I love it. But again, even if that's not you, I think there is something there for you. So, okay, let's wrap up there for today. I feel like we touched on a lot of really good concepts, and my big intention for this one is to just highlight some of the ways that your lived experience is manifest in your pelvis, and to encourage you that the work that it takes to learn yourself on all of these levels is good work. It's important work. It is necessary work. So please do not discredit or brush off this side of things. My hope is that you'll find great joy in starting to learn about this side of your presentation and your experience, because it is really, really empowering to have such a deep understanding. Like in the last episode, I mentioned know, love, listen. All of this falls into that category. If you know yourself physically, emotionally, energetically, that's just more for you to love, more for you to listen to. And if you are not taking the time to dive into all of those areas, the healing is just a little bit incomplete. It's okay. There are plenty of people that don't spend time working in all those areas, and they still have great results. They still see change and improvement. But I am such a deep believer that when we take the time to look at all of those areas really intentionally, really slowly, again, with compassion and kindness, I've seen it. The results are so beautiful, and I want that for you. If you're here, if you're listening to this podcast, I hope that means that this work is meaningful to you, and if that's the case, you deserve that work, that healing. So really encourage that. Listen back, find those journal prompts, and definitely do some reflecting. I'm available if you want to process any of it, if you want me to answer any questions. As always, I'm available virtually if you're somewhere beyond my reach. And if not, send me an email if you want to work with me in the clinic, and book online if you'd like to work in person. I'm really excited to connect with any/all of you. And sending a lot of love, because this side of the work is often ignored because it has the potential to be hard. So but also very rewarding. Often the hardest things are the most rewarding. So I really encourage you. I'm here for you, and I love you. Thank you so much for being here and for listening. This is a pretty non-traditional way to practice physical therapy and pelvic rehab, but I love it and I think it's really effective and I know it works. So I'm really excited to be sharing it with you. Thanks again for listening, being part of this community, and I will see you in the next episode.